Welcome to Taming Disaster with Drones for Good podcast, presented by Aeros, part of GE Aviation, with additional financial support from First Eyes and Pix4D. Tune in for in-depth interviews, one-of-a-kind perspectives, and insightful conversations with industry leaders who are using drones to help prepare for, respond to, and recover from complex emergencies and major disasters around the world. And now, from the Aert Studios in Miami, Florida, the heart of Hurricane Alley, here is your host, Christopher Todd.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Taming Disaster. We are really glad to have you aboard today. It is going down the stretch. We're getting into conference season, and we have a very special show lined up for you today. It's actually the first time on Taming Disaster that we're going to have dual guests. So, without further ado, let me tell you who those guests are. We've got Danielle Gagne, editorial analyst with Commercial UAV News, is going to be here. She's going to be talking about the state of the unmanned systems industry, the UAS drone industry, from her perspective, what that means. And she's going to tell us a little bit about Commercial UAV Expo Virtual and how that event's going to be a little bit different and more enticing this year. But we've also got Garret Bryl, the lead test pilot from DRONERSPONDERS. And for those of you who have been following public safety, you've probably heard Garrett's name. He's out there testing aircraft it seems like every day. It's probably every week, but we'll let him tell us about that. But it's going to be a great show, and Garrett's going to tell us about what he's got lined up, not only from the industry perspective, but also for Commercial UAV Expo. So let me jump right in, and let's start with you, Danielle. Welcome to the program. How are you?
Doing great, and thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to have you aboard. You've had me on a couple of your video segments, so I'm glad I was able to have you join us today and talk a little bit about the unmanned systems industry. And Garret, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Always busy, always in the drone industry. It never stops. Everything's moving fast, and I try my best to keep up. Down here in Texas, nice and warm. But other than that, I'm doing great. How about you?
We're doing good. I'm down in Miami, and it's still warm and balmy and humid, and we're waiting for more hurricanes to come by. So we'll see what happens. But one thing I like to do is kind of start each program off with learning a little bit about how the guests got involved in the unmanned systems industry. So Danielle, let's start off with you. Tell us a little bit. How did you end up as the editorial analyst at Commercial UAV News?
Interesting question. I'm actually going into a full year in this position. I ended up getting through this through the textbook industry, which sounds like a little bit of a sideways entrance. But what I ended up doing, I was an editorial quality assurance manager, team lead over at this company called SBI Global. And they had me working on a lot of technology and programs and disruptive ways that people can learn. And what ended up happening is, as all things do, sometimes things just don't work out, and they had to do some downsizing, and my department was kind of axed. And so I went looking for a way to really get into the technology industry because I really fell in love with what I was doing there. And there was this great opportunity in Portland, Maine at Diversified Communications for someone to head the editorial sector of Commercial UAV News Expo.
Wow.
And I jumped in headfirst and somehow managed to convince them that I was the right choice, and I was able to join the team, and I haven't looked back since. It's been a wild ride, and I just love it.
Right on. Well, we're glad you joined that team. You've been making a great impact in the industry. And for those of you out there who are not familiar, Diversified Communications is the show producer behind Commercial UAV Expo. They're based up in, is it Portland, Maine?
Yeah, Portland, Maine.
And so you live in Portland, Maine, I would surmise.
I do.
Okay.
7 minutes away from the office that I can't go into right now.
There you go. It's a good problem to have. And You still have a little bit of summer left up there, Danielle. So make sure you extend that out as long as you can.
I will.
Okay. All right, Garret, let's go over to you because, you are, again, you've been making quite an impact as well in this industry, albeit different channels. I know you're super active on social media, Facebook, YouTube. You're reviewing new technology when it comes out. Tell us a little bit, how did you get started down this path with drones and unmanned systems?
So this is a story I actually love to tell. I've been doing this since 2014, so it's been quite a while. I won't beat you up for the whole story, but the way I got started is actually pretty interesting. It's one of those things where I didn't go looking for it, and it just happened. So it's kind of crazy. Way back in 2013, I've been flying remote control and everything even since I was a kid. And back in 2013, my wife, she actually said, "Hey, have you seen one of those cool white drones that are all high tech?" I said, "Yeah, of course. They're expensive." She goes, "Well, yeah, but you like doing this. Go get one." I don't even think she finished the word one, and I was just flying down the street to go get
that's
one.
Cool.
Right? So I
right
went
on.
and I got this and started flying it. Loved it. It was a Phantom 2. Phantom 2. And I was flying this, having fun. But we have a set of core family values that, if you have a gift, skill, talent, you should use it to help other people. And she challenged me with that. She said, "Okay, this is great. You do this every day. You fly this thing every day. How are you going to use this to help other people?" And that was a pretty good one. And one of my neighbors, I wish I could remember which one it was. I can't. It's kind of just a gray area. But they challenged me, or they told me, they said, "Hey, I heard that the fire department, they actually lost a guy here a year or two ago, and they had mentioned that if they would have had air support." So anyway, I went down and I talked to Chief Baker, and some of you may know him now. He actually works at DJI, Chief Wayne Baker, and set up a appointment to show him this, and he was excited about it. They were actually already looking or thinking about using drones, and showed him, and he looked at it and he said, "This is great." I asked him, "Hey, would you be interested in me flying for you whenever I can?" He said, "I'd love to." So we started off,
Wait, hang on. So I got to interrupt you for a second. So you basically showed the first DJI drone to Chief Wayne Baker, who's now the head of public safety integration for DJI?
I did.
Right on.
I did. So we started flying just as kind of a little experiment. And the first structure fire that we flew on, eyes were this big. I mean, they were just wide open, and everybody's like, "This changes everything." And so a lot of things happened in just a few months, and really started integrating it. He's very much pro technology and started integrating it. And then shortly after that, the Inspire 1 came out, and I got one of those. I invested in one of those, and quickly we learned this one had a lot more capability, even payload capability, and we had the ability to carry life preservers and stuff like that. Well, it wasn't just about 2 weeks that we actually had a set of these little Stork payload carrying capability, and we had a set of a large flood here in North Texas. And we went out to the Castells. This was the one, maybe everybody may have seen this one. This is the one that went around the world. It got on Good Morning America and everything else. But it was Chief Baker's decision, and I did the piloting. We flew the first rescue line, did the first active rescue, recorded active rescue with a drone, where we weren't just doing like a search and rescue and finding a missing child, or we actually delivered a rescue device to a victim. After that, everything exploded. I'm not going to fill you in with all the details, but due to my nature and what I do, I love helping to innovate, helping to provide input into this stuff, and of course, testing it. It's just the way that I am. And that's then, of course, fast forward all the way to now and helping drone responders with providing the information to public safety agencies so that they can make the best decisions for the equipment for their agency.
That's great. And I want to get into all that today because I want to learn about, testing, and we've heard about the testing matrix, and we're going to dig into that. But I think first what I want to do is go back to Danielle. And Danielle, if you can get, it seems like every week you're talking to different people in the industry. So you've got
Yep.
so many different perspectives on what's happening, for, based on the information flow you have there at Commercial UAV News. Tell us, what is, 2020 has been a tricky year, and that's to put it nicely. So what's your assessment on the current state of the commercial unmanned systems industry?
And 2020 isn't even over yet, which is hard to believe. But it's been a really tricky year. In some areas, we're seeing a lot of growth where we might not have seen it as a result of the pandemic, especially in terms of drone delivery and increased interest in asset management, because drones can do what we can't do right now, which is be there on the scene, and they're natural social distancers. They help us to monitor our assets, help us to keep eyes on what we need to keep our eyes on, while also keeping people safe from being infected and keeping them healthy. So there is that, but on the other hand, we have a lot of businesses who are looking at their bottom line. They're trying to figure out how this is going to impact the future of their businesses. And so they're taking a hard look and wondering, are drones worth going into? Or maybe if they started their drone program, maybe that's because it's so new that maybe that's the first thing that gets cut. So we're seeing both sides of that coin happening this year. We're seeing
really? So you're seeing companies cutting drone programs just as an added expense that they can't carry right now?
As counterintuitive as it is, there are some companies that at least anecdotally, I've heard that they are kind of looking at if they started a new drone program and it's something that they haven't really gotten into, they haven't gotten that return on investment, especially if that is allocated to research and development dollars. And not operational dollars, where that budgeting is placed, you're not seeing the kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, investment in the drone industry there. However, if we can make that switch from research and development dollars, where budgets are probably being slashed because of the pandemic, and we can turn it into, this is going to save you money. If we as an industry are able to make that valid case, that's where we're seeing growth. So like I said, in asset management, survey and mapping, also in the public safety industry, we're seeing a lot of new novel ways that people are looking to drones to help them with various things. Some things are more questionable than others, as you and I have discussed on previous conversations, but there is this interest in drones from the public side, but also that too is a double-edged sword. With interest comes additional fears. And so that public perception aspect is still there, then we still have to work towards it every day. And you're on the front lines of that, so you probably understand that just as well as anybody, how important it is to build a positive story. And we're seeing that too. Wing helped a librarian deliver library books. We saw CVS and UPS and Matternet come together to deliver prescriptions to retirement communities in Florida. So we're seeing these great stories that are coming out of this year, as well as a result of the pandemic. And so there are a lot of good and bad things happening. It's a little bit chaotic, but I think in the end, this is actually going to be good for the industry. I think it's getting more buzz than maybe we wouldn't have had if this hasn't happened. And you don't want to say that. You don't want to say that we're getting something good out of something so challenging and terrible, but it's showing what we already knew drones could do anyway.
Understood.
Yeah.
So that is really, I want to say interesting, but I feel like I always say interesting. It's pretty poignant that your comment about, as we've talked about, the use cases out there and what's real and what's kind of, hypothetical and maybe fantasy land. And, I think for a long time, we've seen the marketing PR teams at a lot of companies just kind of pump out information and in an industry kind of starved for content, people just ran with it a lot of times. But what I think we're seeing now with COVID is it's opening the eyes of, okay, what can we really accomplish with these systems versus what somebody might be dreaming about? And I think that's where Garret, I think that's where you really come in, because it's one thing for a company to say, hey, our drones can do this. But here's the guy with drone responders who's actually going to be like, okay, yeah, really? All right, so send me one. And you put it through some pretty serious tests to evaluate what those machines can do. So tell us a little bit about that. I mean, what excites you about this? And when you get a new aircraft or some new software, like what's going through your mind and what's the process you follow?
Right. Yeah. Thank you. So that is correct. That's one of the challenges is cutting through all the marketing hype and what's what, all of the manufacturers. I mean, and they're out in a business, and it's understandable that they're going to give you all the highlights and show you nothing less. This is going to be the next shining drone. But the reality is, and that we've seen, is over the years, we've had a lot of public safety agencies struggle with this. They want to get one drone that checks as many boxes as possible, but there's a lot of the boxes that aren't checked, at all, and they're wondering, oh, hey, what can I do? Well, part of this is we wanted to put together a test matrix, and we identified uniquely, regardless of what it is, what aircraft it is, or what payload it is, 43 different tests or analysis points that we can do that public safety agencies can then use to determine how well it fits in theirs. And we wanted to hit all of them that we know, because there may be one agency, well, maybe they don't care about flying interior, or maybe they can't fly at night, or whatever it might be. But what they can do is take this matrix and then apply a priority to it, and then they can use that, a quantifiable test result, for them to know which one fits their needs the best. So anyway, whenever I get something to test, whether it be a new UAS platform, or whether it be a payload or software, or any of the above, what I like to do is run it past. I'm well connected here with the public safety U.S. response team in North Texas, and I like to run it past a bunch of guys that fly just as much as I do, and really kind of collaborate with them and say, how is this going to be utilized, and how do we really need to run this thing through the ringer? Right? And that's the exciting thing. And then we test this, and we try to be, sometimes it has to be subjective, but we try to be objective as much as possible, quantify the results. If we're going to test just say a thermal imager, for example, how far can we detect? How far can we identify? What is the minimum discernible signal that this thing can identify? How useful is this to public safety, fire, police, emergency managers, so on and so forth? We like to quantify that as much as possible, because, again, I have seen different agencies, well, we're just looking at stuff up close, so we don't really care about detection range. Okay, well, you can put that on there. And if it's totally subjective, like me saying, hey, this one's the best, well, that doesn't really work for them. What they need to know is, this was the detection range. Well, hey, maybe that's suitable for them. Maybe this one is not. So anyway, whenever we do this, we like to put together a test that we can run this thing through. The other thing that we've been looking for lately, and this is kind of a big shift in the industry in 2020. I know 2020 has been a nightmare on many levels, but one of the things that's really interesting is we finally hit the point between not just manufacturers, but different platforms and different types of technology, that we can now start doing comparisons, which these three are similar, but which one's the best? Which one offers you the best bang for the buck? Which maybe the buck isn't important, which one offers the most bang, period. So we can start doing comparisons between them. And the other thing about that, there's a secondary objective behind that. And that is that I'm hopeful that using this test matrix, that the manufacturers can truly identify the needs for public safety. A lot of times they'll go out and they'll do a little survey or something like that. And you'll get one agency that says this, one agency that says that. But if they pretty much had a checklist of, hey, if we want to score well and really get recognized for our great products, then we need to make sure we check as many boxes as possible on a matrix like this. So that's the interest behind it. And we try to run, sometimes we test every day, sometimes our day jobs get in the way, but we do some kind of testing at least every week. And the latest one on the test matrix, we're about 80% through with it. And so that one is the Autel Evo 2 Dual, which is kind of the latest rave, the Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual, the Mavic 2 Enterprise, and then the M210 with the XT2. And by the way, I've got a lot of flack over that. I'll say it since we're on public right now. I'll say I've got a lot of flack over why is the M210? That's not even the same. It's really in there because of the XT2. Everybody wanted the sensor a lot. I shouldn't say everybody. There was a lot of interest in comparing the sensor, which the XT2 has kind of been your premier, with this new, high resolution sensor that's on that Autel Evo 2 Dual. So for all those who are wondering, I've been bombarded. Maybe that'll save you a few answers on that. Anyway,
awesome.
That's why we do it.
And for those who want to, see the results of this testing, I know you're publishing on Facebook, on YouTube. Where can people go to find out these results?
So what we're trying to do is, especially with all the tests that can be objectively quantified, what we're doing is we're taking individual tests. So the latest one that we tested, and I know this sounds maybe simple to some, but this is important to public safety. How long does it take for you to deploy the system? How long does it take for you to do a battery swap? These are actually life-saving and life-critical times for that kind of machinery, right? For that kind of equipment.
Yep, and absolutely.
So what I'll do is we'll put the individual tests just out there. They're on YouTube, and then we like to post them on social media and out on the DRONERSPONDERS social media pages and stuff. And so they can go out and look at individual tests. Now, the plan is once the test matrix is finished, it's going to be published, and looks like we're trying to push it through DRONERSPONDERS so that everybody can actually go to DRONERSPONDERS and get that information directly from them. It's a great resource hub, and it makes sense. But then they can actually it's going to be a spreadsheet, and again, they can enter in their priority factors in there, and it'll pretty much, out of those that were tested in a group, it would, based on their priorities, it would tell them which drone best suits their needs.
That's very cool, because you're basically taking scientific analysis, market research, and quantifying the rumors that are coming out. And so, Danielle, I want to shift this back over to you, because you're kind of in the middle of this, right? You're an editorial analyst. You've got there's probably a certain amount of pressure on you to represent a favorable impact for the industry, especially those who work closely and support different events. But at the same time, now you've got data coming out that's starting to tell a story that may support or may not support some of the claims coming from the manufacturers. So how do you handle that? And what do you think that means, especially for public safety?
I think that as an editorial analyst and somebody who's bringing news to the industry, that the information I get has to be as accurate as possible. We're not doing the service to anyone, public safety industry as one of them, but any of the industries that we serve, to not give the best information possible. If there are deficiencies in certain things, or we try to deal with, okay, how does this might not work for this, but maybe this is better suited for this. And so we have to play that fine line when we're working with companies, but we always try to guide people to the right product for their needs. And it always comes down to that. What are you trying to achieve? What's your end goal? Like you said with the matrix, Garret, is that you can kind of make that your own and say, these are the things that really matter to me. And really, and it all comes down to budgets too. It comes down to what can you afford? What do you need to do with your drone? What are your expectations of that drone? And so we're able to qualify that through taking the data that we're getting the information that people are sharing throughout the industry, and packaging that in an approachable way. So this is what this drone can do. If you're looking for something else, look over here. And an example of that is we just did the first part of a battery operated review of different types of batteries and powering solutions. Not every battery and powering solution is going to fit your needs. And so we were able to say, okay, this has this shortcoming, but it's really good with this. And that's really what we're trying to define, because if you put money down and invest in something, you want it to give you a return on that investment. And the company that owns that product and presents that product is going to want you eventually to be buying the product that's going to suit your needs, because they're not going to get a return business if they're not. So I think it ends up helping both sides of that equation by being honest.
Exactly. Yeah, I could not agree more. So, as far as content gaps, what type of content do you think like Garret and drone responders might be able to offer that could blend into, where's the gap in the industry right now, and where can they add value with what they're doing with this testing?
I think the biggest thing that we can all come to agreement on is that we need standards for every single industry. And I think that's exactly what Garret is able to provide the industry, is saying, this is what we're actually looking for. And to be able to actually go out into the commercial drone industry and say, these are the standards that we need you to meet, and these are the operational equivalencies that you need to meet in order for this to be an effective tool for us, that's going to challenge the industry to do better if it's not meeting those standards. And it's also going to ensure that these products are going to be the best that they can be for the tools that they need to be doing.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, standards are one of the big gaps. I know it's a gap that Drone Responders has been focusing on, and I expect there'll be some information on that coming out soon, but I don't want to say too much. But so Garret, you've been kind of doing this for how long? For years. It seems like it's been heating up in the last 2 years, but how far back have you really been taking this stuff and putting it through the ringer, so to speak?
So as far as testing goes, I started beta testing. I originally got involved in testing. I started beta testing for DJI when they were pretty much the only one on the block. I started doing that back in 2015, late 2015, early 2016. So it started with that, and I really kind of got involved in the understanding of the feedback system. It's a little bit different. You got to keep in mind, my day job, everything is very formal engineering. And in the technology industry, there's a lot of rapid development, and it's a little bit different. And they'll use kind of a feedback and testing system. So it started with that, and then it started escalating from there. And a lot of any of these companies, both large and small, that wanted to know how well their design really fit into the public safety scheme, they would ask me, hey, do you have time to test this product? And of course I will. And it doesn't matter, there's some guys out there doing testing, they'll only test some big stuff. For me, the real applicability is this going to help save lives and property? If I put this in the hands of a public safety UAS pilot, can he save lives and property? Or can it help him to save lives and property? And if the answer is yes, then I'm very much happy to test it. A lot of times I'll test a product, give them feedback. They'll make the improvements, and it'll come out again. They'll say, hey, test this, and I'll test it again. It's great. Or maybe something else needs to be improved. And sometimes there's a little bit of a feedback loop, and then ultimately it gets released. Sometimes it gets released before I want it to, but one of my challenges, I don't have a say so. I'm kind of at their mercy. I can just provide recommendations. So, but exactly what Danielle was saying. Part of the goal behind this is to standardize, but not necessarily just standardize. Really, the whole industry is so young, and so that these manufacturers are going off of what they just get from whoever and whatever, and they're making their best go at it. And just like what Danielle said, what we really want them to do is from the very foundation of these UAS platforms, if they're going to market it towards public safety, or if they're going to market it towards your power line inspector, or whatever it might be, the primary customer, we really want them to be able to make informed decisions from the foundation. Because one thing that I've learned, and this goes in any kind of manufacturing, once they get to a certain level, as far as their development, their design, it's too expensive for them to revamp, for them to go back and make changes.
Yeah.
And so what we want, and that's what I learned as part of the testing. I'll give you a quick example, not a detailed example, but let's say there was this new drone and we said, hey, this is great, but it would have been better if you would have put a higher resolution thermal sensor on there. Well, it's too late. They've already done the design for the whole gimbal. It's in manufacturing. They've paid for all of the dies, everything else. You can't do that. So after realizing that, and it's all manufacturers, not just one, it's just part of the whole process. What we want to do is get in there early and say, this is what we need, right? This is where you'll score high. And you may have put some fancy stuff on there that really came over from the consumer electronics side. You did some kind of fancy little orbit thing, and something that would appeal more to a kid. Well, that doesn't get you any points, because we don't use that. Nobody. You may use some of those fun things may not get used at all, either commercial or public safety, and they need to know that as well.
Yeah, they've got to know their target audience, because a lot of times we're seeing these features and this tech, which is, okay, that's interesting, but it's clearly made for maybe an amateur video filmer, not for public safety. And you could argue part of that is, well, they're trying to figure out who their target market is. But yeah, I think there's been plenty of cases where they get down the development pipeline to a certain point and they can't go back and make those changes, even if the feedback's coming in. And Danielle, you hit on a really important point too, was budgets. I mean, the drone responders research we saw coming out of the survey this summer was the average departments are $10,000 or less in their program budget. And we're seeing officers with collateral duty who, have, they respond to an incident and the drone might not be their primary responsibility for that incident. So a lot going on there, and it's forcing departments to stretch their investment dollars in the public safety program even further, which I think is why we've seen kind of this shift over the last few years to smaller, less expensive aircraft and some of the high-priced, big-boned aircraft. I mean, Garret, have you seen that in your testing? Is that kind of the trend that has been developing through the research that you've conducted?
Yes. So one of the things that I really try to help on as much as possible is to help agencies. I probably sometimes I spend more time on this than I do anything during the day, is helping public safety agencies make a decision on which platforms, which products they want. And part of that is understanding some of their limitations. And the three biggest limitations that I've seen, this has been really ongoing. It's still ongoing. I mean, it's still the three biggest challenges is number one is budget, and you already hit on that. And number two is logistics. A lot of them can't, some of these big, large aircraft, in order to deploy them in a timely manner, they have to dedicate a $60,000, UAV, like a Tahoe or something like that, SUV, right?
Yeah,
so
you can't put an M200 series in the back of every police car.
Right. And so that's been a challenge. Then, of course, the last one is just the training and the knowledge and the understanding. So those have been some of the biggest challenges that they faced. And so, yes, $10,000 is a very key price for most public safety budgets. And there's some reasons behind that. But the next one is the logistics. So what we've been looking for is more and more of the highly capable, compact UAS that you could just throw into the backseat of a car, or in the trunk of a car, or wherever, and it's compact. The other thing with that is being first, what we call first on. So in order to deploy a large aircraft, if time is of the essence. You have some kind of active shooter or say a fire with possible victims in it, whatever it might be. That thing needs to be in the air yesterday. And so to sit there and pull out some monster aircraft and stuff is a challenge. But if they can have one of these compact ones, they can just have in the air in a minute or right around then that's a big advantage. The challenge that we've had, though, is the small platforms. Until just recently, the small platforms have had pretty weak sensors. So, and this even that all that did is really amplify the challenge, because an agency that really wants to be effective on their program, because they do, right? They want this thing to succeed. Can't just buy one drone and say, hey, this thing is awesome, now let's grow it to something else. They have to say, well, in order for us to be effective, in order for us to fly day, night, interior, exterior, and check the boxes, we've got to buy 3 drones. And their program gets shut down quick with that kind of stuff.
Different tools in the toolkit. Danielle, I'm going to jump to you in a second, but Garret, I want to ask you real quick, because I know people out there are wondering, when you're evaluating, are you doing this as a paid consultant, or you're doing this free of charge for the good of the order type of thing?
That's a great question. And to be honest with you, I have been offered many jobs in the UAS industry. Some of them openly say even more than what I make as a aerospace engineer. But I have turned them all down. I get paid nothing, nothing from any of these. And there's a reason for that, because I'm human. And I know that if I were compensated by anybody on this, that I would have a tendency to be less critical or not reveal any kind of weaknesses or anything like that. I want to be as unbiased and as objective as possible. I want public safety, any agency out there to know that whatever I put out there for information, that is dependable. It's not influenced by any kind of marketing person from any company at all whatsoever.
Awesome. Thank you for letting us know that. And I kind of knew that already, but I think it was really important for everybody out there to know, because, sometimes I've seen your reviews. If something doesn't cut the mustard, you are not afraid to make it so and state the case. So it's all coming from an unbiased, impartial perspective. And that's super important, as our editorial analyst would tell you. So I want to jump gears here. And Danielle, I want to talk about Commercial UAV Expo Virtual, because as we kind of covered earlier, it's been a crazy year. And there's, we're coming up here on September 15th, Commercial UAV Expo Virtual kicks off. And I know the team at Diversified has been, I'm not going to say scrambling, but it's been an effort to kind of revamp the traditional format into this virtual format. So tell us, what do you guys have in store for Commercial UAV Expo 2020?
Big question, and yes, it's been a heavy lift to make that pivot, but I've been really impressed with what the team has been able to put together. And one of the biggest things from my editorial analyst point of view is probably we have one of the best conference lineups that we've ever had. That doesn't change. The people are still there. In fact, people who may not have been available to join us because of constraints and timing or having to travel, they're able to join us this year. And I think if you come for nothing but the content, you're going to get a lot out of it. But we're also had to create the value that comes out of that live event. I mean, the biggest thing is you get to talk to people. You get to connect and network and interact with people and learn about the industry and new products. So how do you recreate that in a virtual format? We've developed a couple of ways to do that. We have this networking app called Grip, and it's built right into the platform. It's seamless, so you don't even know it's really there, but it has an AI component that matches you with people who are interested in the same things you're interested in. And so you can find people easier and you can connect with people. And the more you interact with Grip, the smarter it gets, so that it can lead you to the right connections that you need. We also have added a chat feature into every single one of our content pieces. So keynotes, all the plenaries. Everyone can communicate with each other and talk with each other during the shows, so that if you have questions, it's very interactive and you can meet people that way. And the third thing is that we have power hours through our virtual booths. And that's when people are going to be staffed at their booths. You can go in, you can get a demo, you can meet one-on-one like you would if you're walking the show floor. And you can also find out more information about different products that are happening. Some other things that we're really excited about is that we're able to recreate some of the highlights of that live event, which was really been a challenge and kind of an exciting thing to figure out. How do you one of the big things has been the poolside connect. How do we recreate that? So we're having a virtual party. It's called Together a Party. A little play on words there. But we're going to have a game of drones where we're going to ask trivia questions, where people can kind of compete with each other and for prizes, and everyone's getting their own special box with alcoholic or non-alcoholic beverages and local snacks to kind of open up at the party so we can all be together. And kind of Jeremiah Karpowitz and I are part of that emceeing project, so you get to see me. If
Nice.
that's a selling point.
Of course, that's a selling point.
And before that, we have your flying demos on Tuesday, like we always do. We have emerging tech showcases, like we always do in the show. And
so hang on, let me say about the flying demos. How's that going to work? Like you're gonna have a pre-recorded video demo, or it's a live demo that the audience is watching on video, or what's the logistics behind that?
So the logistics behind that is it's a pre-recorded demo that has the same kind of flavor and feel as if you're going to be there live. So we're coaching the people who are doing this to do demonstrations that are flying demonstrations, so that we're actually showcasing what this technology can do, like what you would see at a flying demo.
So they're going to be looking at the aircraft, not necessarily the screen or the ground control station, or both, like a split screen, or you just don't even know yet?
We're looking forward to seeing what our companies put together.
Gotcha. Okay. Fair enough. Because, I think it's super important. I mean, one thing we've kind of been hearing as this COVID thing has escalated is, we've seen there's so much digital content out there. Everybody's going virtual. Everybody's doing webinars. And so it's super challenging because, as you said, the in-person live interaction from the live events, can be replicated to a certain degree, but that's really what people were paying for. And now, events like Commercial UAV Expo and AUVSI Exponential are competing against webinars and virtual content. So it sounds like you guys have a plan, though, with some of these networking activities and the other ancillary events to kind of not only provide the ROI to the sponsors, but to the people who are attending to kind of make sure that they're connected in ways that they weren't previously.
Absolutely. You're never going to recreate that in live, as you said, experience, but people need to come together, and the industry needs to come together and be able to come up to bring themselves up to date on the latest technology, the biggest conversations. This is a big time for a lot of people, and a lot has happened, as we discussed earlier, and try to make sense of all of that. So I think it's a really important thing that we come together and we use the virtual platform to the best of its ability to help facilitate that until we can all come together again, hopefully in 2021.
Oh, absolutely. Hopefully, if not sooner. So one thing that, of course, I'm completely biased here. I'm just going to say it, but the part I'm really looking forward to is the DRONERSPONDERS Public Safety Summit produced by AIRT. And, we want to thank you and the Diversified team for allowing us to work with you again. This will be our second year. And it's been kind of a wild card with COVID. And Garret, I'm going to bring you back in here because we're kicking off that summit with something that I don't think has been done before. And we're kind of billing it as the battle of the big three, the showdown in the desert. That's right. Garret Bryl, joined by Skydio, Parrot, DJI for a one-stop event. I don't know. I feel like this could be MMA. It could turn into a jazz quartet if everybody's really nice. I don't know if it's going to be a cage match or what it's going to be, but you're hosting a session that's going to involve Romeo Dersher. It's going to have Fritz Reber and Francois Xavier Charbonneau from Parrot. So you're going to have DJI, Skydio, Parrot basically kicking off the Drone Responders Summit with the Drone Responders lead test pilot who goes out and evaluates aircraft. What do you have planned for this so far? Have you thought about it yet?
Well, yeah, absolutely. If I have it my way, it'll be more of a cage match than anything. I don't want to let these guys off easy. So that's for sure. A lot of times whenever I listen to some of the other summits like that, a lot of times it's more of your touchy-feely questions. I want to hit these guys with some of the hard questions. Some of the things. I'll feel more successful if I get more answers that they don't feel comfortable answering that or something like that. I'll raise my hands in victory because what I want to do for these manufacturers is really kind of put them on the spot and see if we can't get them to not only tell us a little insight into what they do and how they do, but also their insight into how they're thinking about our needs and not just the dollar. I want them to answer some technical questions. I want them to answer, how things, questions about the future of the market and stuff like that, but not from the perspective that we might talk about on this. Well, what do you think is here? No, I want answers to a lot more challenging questions than that are going to be a little more technical.
I want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Right.
Exactly. It's going to be one of those moments. Colonel Jessup.
We're gonna go down that road. I'm not gonna. I'll probably go right up to that line where they despise me when the thing is over, but I'll try not to cross that line.
Did you order the code red? Wow. I hope we're not scaring these guys away from this because I wasn't even I wasn't expecting you to even say that. Danielle, what's your take on that? You think Commercial UAV Expo is going to be ready for this?
I'm ready for this. I'm glad that I get to witness it rather than. But yeah, I think that in the end, these kinds of questions are what we need to be asking in order to get somewhere, in order to move us into the next direction, to scale, to really meet the needs of the public we're supposed to be serving as an industry.
Yep. I agree. Well, Garret, it sounds like you've got a good plan in place. So I'm not, I don't want you to let too much out of the bag right now, but I think there's certainly, if that's not a strong tease for people to tune in and attend Commercial UAV Expo and the Drone Responders Public Safety Summit, that alone is going to be worth the price of admission. It sounds pretty exciting. And I know there's a great show lined up across the board, no matter what industry you're in, whether it's construction, telecommunications, energy, there's a little bit of something for everyone in commercial UAV. And of course, in public safety, the Drone Responders Global Public Safety Summit is going to have not only the session we talked about with Garret, it's going to have fire-focused content for the fire rescue service, law enforcement-focused content. We're going to be talking about software, and we're going to have some roundtable discussions where people can actually sit in and speak in roundtable conversations rather than just listening to the panelists and the moderators pontificate on what they think is important. So it's going to be pretty exciting. I'm excited for it. We've got a few minutes left here. I want to get some closing thoughts from each of you, kind of parting thoughts, and also Danielle, if you can tell us what some steps somebody should take if they want to secure their ticket for Commercial UAV Expo.
Absolutely. I'm saying that if you're on the fence about coming to the expo, check out, come in as an exhibitor. This is the first time that not exhibitors, as attendees, because you can go and check out the exhibits. You can see the keynotes, see what we're all about, and really test the waters, and see if you want to, if you want to actually put the time and energy and money into participating in some of the rest of the content. If you want to actually look at the registration, you just go onto our site, commercial.
I think it's expouav.com. Yeah.
Yes, sorry. I'm so used to commercialuavnews.com because that's where I work on. Sorry. If you want to subscribe to our newsletter, also you can go there. But expouav.com, and you can click on the register tab to register for the event.
And there is special pricing available for public safety personnel. So, yes. and one thing we're doing this year, I know too, which is pretty cool. In the past, we really had to, if you wanted to bring your whole drone team or your whole UAS team to a conference, you had travel costs, lodging, meals. Now with the virtual thing, we've got some special passes online for UAS teams. So you can basically tune in to Commercial UAV Expo as a drone team. So each person on the team gets their own login so that you can go uniquely network and participate in different events, different panels, or you can do it together, but there is team pricing available. So that's something we're testing this year that I'm pretty excited about. I hope it works out well. So Garret, first of all, if you can just tell everyone one more time where they can go to learn about all this research and you've done in the Matrix. What's the best place that you would recommend they go visit?
So if you go to the Drone Responders, you could on their Facebook page, you should be able to pull up all of the individual tests. It's also available out on my YouTube. I post them out on YouTube for convenience. It's out on my page, just my name, Garret Bryl. You can search on there and find it out there. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, the test matrix, once it's completed, will be made public and published. But I want to say, just because it's this one-shot thing doesn't mean the test matrix will be a very much ongoing test, a never-ending test, because once we're finished with these, there'll probably be another one. We have the Parrot Anafi USA coming along. And what we plan to do is the winner of this matrix, well, let's pair it head-to-head with the Anafi, see how it sized up. So ongoing, this thing will just record. Now, as platforms become obsolete, of course, they'll need to be removed. And we'll manage it that way. But anyway, yeah, I'm excited about continuing to do this, trying to help the industry in any way that I can, both locally here, helping with disasters. I know this. We almost got deployed for the hurricane. Luckily, it went off, and unfortunate for Louisiana, lucky for Texas, if I'm being selfish. But we did not have to be deployed on that one. But we go to all the disasters, both the local emergencies and the big disasters. So I'd like to contribute there. I'd like to contribute with that, and of course with drone responders and the upcoming summit, I'd like to contribut there. The whole goal in the end, if I can help public safety in any way to help save lives and property, that's the end goal for me. So,
well, thank you. And let me clarify, since this is a podcast, those of you who want to research Garret's YouTube channel, it is Garret, last name Bryl, Bryl. And so put that into your search box on Google or whatever your browser is, and YouTube, and you'll get access to all the videos, all the work he's been doing to research this. I want to thank you both for joining me today. This has been a fascinating conversation, and I think we probably could have gone for another hour, but I think maybe after Commercial UAV, we might have to reconvene and debrief. I don't know. Thoughts on that, Danielle?
I think so.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you for having us.
All right, well, my thanks to you both, and thank you all for listening. This has been another edition of Taming Disaster. We'll see you soon.
Thank you for listening to Taming Disaster, a production of AIRT, the world's leading nonprofit organization supporting drones for good. Learn more about us online at airt.ngo. And be sure to tune in to our public safety focused podcast, Drone Responders, hosted by Charles Werner.